So yesterday, or one of these days, I think it was in Frankfurt at the train station, a migrant pushed a mother and her 8-year-old child on the train tracks when a high velocity train was just coming in. And he even tried to push a third person onto the tracks, but he failed. The child, the 8-year-old child, died, and the mother could just barely save herself. Now, this is not the first time that something like that happened. People are now getting pushed onto the train tracks often, more often than before. Since the number of occurrences of this kind of thing was like 0 before, you cannot even, put a percentage there, how much percent it increased. This kind of behavior was just not known before in Germany. And I live now in a country where 90% of people, they just shrug their shoulders. My father, for example, he is a philosopher. He's quite a liberal guy, intellectual person, and he has absolutely no problems whatsoever with our immigration policy. When I visited him last week, I saw for the first time in my life a migration agency for migration is now right besides the the regional court building, like the regional administration. You now have besides it, there is now a new building, and it says Agency for Migration. My first impression when I saw this building was, why don't they just write Agency for Colonization? Because this whole policy implies, it implies when it says Agency for Migration, it implies that they're not planning to send these people back. They're clearly not refugees anymore. They are settlers. Now, why is that a problem? In my opinion, that is a problem because we live in democratic societies. We're supposed to live in democratic societies. And in a democratic society, the majority rules. But why is migration a problem with this? Because we also live in a system that is called the United Nations. And if you look at the preamble of the United Nations, at the beginning of the document, of the Declaration of the United Nations, its founding principles, it says that this organization is founded on the principle of self-determination of all peoples. So I learned in school that the United Nations was an institution, an international institution, to prevent war, like the First World War, to prevent such scale wars, and also to give each nation the right to rule themselves, and to, yeah, I learned that it was founded to dismantle these huge empires, the Russian Empire, the British Empire, and to give each nation, each individual nation, the right to determine their own fate through democratic means. So, if you have a big empire and several parts of this empire are settled by different peoples, and the central government of the empire controls these peoples and tells them what to do, and then you have rebellions, and then war breaks out, because these people don't want to be told what to do. They want to live their own life, speak their own language, follow their own traditions, and practice their own religion. And if a central authority tells them, you know, now you have to speak Russian or English or French because you are part of the French, Russian or English Empire, then I learned in school that this was considered a bad thing. And that this people, the small people within this empire, deserved the right to determine their own fate as an independent nation. And I also learned that this principle of independence was also the founding principle of the United States, when they also wanted to be independent from the British Empire. Now, what do you create by moving millions of people from different ethnic backgrounds, with different languages and different religions, into this area here, where already other people are living? You create just another empire where one central government determines the fate of all these different peoples. So you have three different things now: democracy, mass immigration, and the United Nations, the self-determination of all peoples. These three things cannot coexist. It's a logical fallacy. If you have democracy and the majority rules, so if the majority of Germany was like 60% Germans and 40% non-Germans in this democratic country of Germany, the 60% majority of Germans would rule over the other nations in the country. So it's not democracy. You can have a you could have, so you must take away the right of self-determination from these other people who are not Germans. The other way, the same. If 60% of Germany are non-Germans, then the 40% of Germans in Germany don't have the right of self-determination. And so now they're proclaiming that there is a right for migration. But you cannot have a right for migration and at the same time a right for self-determination. That's completely impossible. So what are they doing when you argue with these people, with these intellectuals? They just say there are no nations, there are no peoples. The Germans are not a nation, they say. They're just random people. And they say it is completely irrelevant if there are Germans in Germany or other people. Now, the interesting thing is that these people who talk like this, they have never lived in another country in this world. They have never lived in Latin America or Africa or Asia. Because if they had lived in these countries, they wouldn't say such things. They wouldn't say that Germans are no nation or no ethnic group, no people, because they clearly are. And you can only feel that if you go out of your nation. Because when you are inside your own nation, surrounded by your own people, you don't notice the difference. But when you are surrounded by completely different people, that's when you become a German. Because the other people treat you like a German. They call you a German. They behave very differently, which makes it clear that you are a German. You really learn much more about your own customs when you live for a long time abroad. And I don't mean, one of these student exchanges where you just party half a year and you are together with all kinds of, students who all watched Game of Thrones in their free time and Harry Potter and basically, have the same interests as global youth culture. I mean, really living in the country and dealing with all ages of people and all kinds of people. And not just in this very small sphere of youth life, If you really live in another country, you notice the difference, and that's when you also start to appreciate your own ethnicity and your own background. And it has nothing to do with, with devaluing other peoples. It actually just has to do with, with the cojones, In German you would say Bock. It's your, how do you say that in English? It's just annoying to deny yourself and to live among other peoples and to pretend that you are one of them. There are some people who are more open to other people and others are more closed, but definitely different ethnic groups have a different character, and it's just so much easier to live among your own people. It doesn't mean that the others are worse. It is just so much easier to live with your own people who share more or less the same mutual understood values, who don't have to relearn life every day, When you go to another country to live there and to learn the language, you somehow revert to the stage of a 2-year-old, You become a baby again because you learn all these things from scratch, and this is also how the people treat you. They treat you very kindly, very they forgive you mistakes much more easily because they know you are a baby, you are a new guy, you don't know. And this is also why modern people, students, exchange students, why they have this impression that foreigners are so kind. How can you be against foreigners? They are so nice people, If you go to another country, you tend, as a Westernly educated person, you tend to be nice because you don't want to mess up, and you want to be viewed as a good person. And also the other people tend to be nice to you because they don't want to offend you, they don't want to make you angry so you don't come back. They want to be good hosts and you want to be a good guest. And this is why you have the impression that outside of your own country everybody is so nice to you and life is so easy, But if you start living there permanently and take part in their struggle, in their daily struggle to survive and to move forward in life, then you will be you will be treated completely differently. You will be a competitor, and you have to do something of value to them and not just leech their resources, So the people who are for mass immigration, they base all their ideas on this principle of guest and host, you know. So they think the relations between humans are always like guests, you know, always kind. But that's not the case. Once you move in together permanently, other mechanisms take over and life becomes much more difficult. Especially if you are from widely different cultural backgrounds. Now the only solution for this problem would be to erase cultural backgrounds altogether, and also to erase race altogether, because every race on this planet doesn't only look different and has different eye color and hair texture and skin color, but they also have very different metabolisms, so they eat different things, they digest differently, and they cannot be treated with the same medicines and the same medical procedures. They have completely different religions. You know, some religions don't even allow certain medical procedures, like, you know, heart transplantations or whatever. So everything becomes more difficult. Everything. And all this will make life more difficult and annoying for everybody involved, not just for the Germans who live here, but also for the immigrants. It's just, you know, it doesn't have anything to do with hate. And this is the ridiculous thing, that people break it down to this: oh, you don't like these people, you are prejudiced, you are a racist. No. It has only to do with avoiding completely unnecessary nuisance for everybody, you know? Just an example. If the zoo in Leipzig is now forced to bring an elephant into my kitchen to have it live there, that is a gigantic nuisance for the zoo, because they have to somehow transport the elephant, somehow fit it into my kitchen, and then I have to live with this elephant in my kitchen, and then the elephant also has to live in this kitchen. So the three parties involved, me, the elephant, and the zoo administration, all three have only disadvantages from the whole project. So why would they do that? Now, in our modern society, if the elephant would say anything against his moving into the kitchen, into my kitchen, if the elephant would say anything against that, he would be called a racist. So you don't like Felix? You don't want to move into his kitchen? You are a racist. You are a speciesist. You hate humans. If I say anything against the elephant moving into my kitchen, I am called a speciesist, a racist. So you don't like elephants? Are you an animal hater? If the zoo says anything against moving the elephant into my kitchen, they are called racist or whatever. And this is the insanity of our time, that by using common sense and just trying to avoid unnecessary nuisance for everybody, you are called names. And finally, there's one interesting thing. In Germany now, people argue that there are these completely mad migrants who kill and rape and push people in front of trains and rob and steal and, you know, do all the bad things. Well, yeah, they probably should be sent back, you know, because that's bad. But if the migrants would just pay their taxes and be nice citizens, that would be completely fine, you know, that would be okay. And all this debate is also completely misleading, because if a migrant comes here and causes trouble and doesn't pay taxes and just leeches off the system, yeah, that's bad. But when a migrant comes here and is a nice citizen and pays all the taxes, that's just as bad. Why? Because with his taxes, he is financing the government who is moving the migrants here. So he is supporting the whole process. He is, with his taxes, he pays for moving more criminal migrants into the country, and also more law-abiding migrants who then pay more taxes to allow more criminal migrants into the country. So it's a lose-lose situation in every sense. And again, when it comes to population science, to demographics and to politics, to democracy and all these things, it is always bad to just move people together. This is why countries exist in the first place. You cannot just deny the existence of races and peoples and create one world country unless you remove all peoples and make one big single people that has no difference in culture or language whatsoever, and that would be a very boring thing, in my opinion.